Welcome back to Life Without Secrets. Today's guest is Grace Redman, a dynamic entrepreneur, best-selling author, and sought-after success coach with over 25 years of experience guiding others towards lives of fulfillment and purpose. Known for her wisdom, resilience, and magnetic energy, Grace has led her business to thrive in one of the most competitive markets in the country. In this episode, Grace invites us into her journey of transformation, sharing insights into what it takes to move through obstacles, quiet self doubt, and stay grounded in your purpose. Whether you're looking to break free from limiting beliefs, finding balance in the busyness of life, or gain practical tools for daily inspiration, this conversation will give you just that. So join us right now into Grace's perspective and unique approach to personal growth and success, and prepare to uncover powerful lessons for your own life. Grace, welcome to Life Without Secrets.
Oh, Jillian, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I always love, like we were talking, meeting new people. And so it's going to be a great conversation. It's so fun when you don't know exactly where the conversation's going to go. And
Absolutely.
so these are just, real, authentic conversations that we get to have, which I think is so beautiful. And just a reminder of how much positivity and light there is in the world, people that we get to connect with and share in our journeys. I think it's just a beautiful thing. So I know we were
Absolutely.
meant to have this conversation for a reason.
Oh, thank you. I believe that as well. And you're right. There are so many uplifting and positive people and stories in the world. And I just don't think that they get highlighted enough. So I love your podcast and what you're all about.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes, we are all about light, positivity, and we're also about like the secrets, the struggles, and the strategies that have really brought you to where you are today and getting to learning about your journey. So if you don't mind, sharing with us, like, what has that looked like for you? What has your journey looked like? What were some of those struggles that you've faced thus far that kind of brought you where we are today?
Oh my goodness, that is a loaded question.
I know, right? It always is.
And so the journey hasn't been this way. It's been linear.
Mm,
And you start here and then it gets better and then you go into the valley, then you come back up to the peak. And it's just been an incredible journey. As I look back and I connect the dots, I'm so proud of my younger self for, overcoming so much adversity. And I share this that when I was 19, I started therapy in secrecy. Actually, it was a secret. No
mm,
one knew. And I saw that therapist on and off for 25 years. And 10 years ago, when I started my coaching side of the business, I reached out to her to let her know. And she said, I'm going to share something with you, and I hope I don't offend you. And I said, what is it? She said, when I met you when you were 19 years old, I didn't think that there was any hope left for you.
mm,
And I said, oh my gosh, I'm not offended at all. And that just speaks to resilience and just to the human spirit and what's possible.
yeah.
And so again, that our challenges, our adversities, we can either choose to be a victim or we can become victorious from them. And for me, overcoming my adversities has really helped build my resilience muscles, and it's given me tremendous confidence as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that as well. And I mean, sometimes, I look back at when I was 19 as well. I had already had a child. I was in college at the time, and, it's funny, you know, life has so many different twists and turns. And, we can think of like, oh, it's going to look like this. And then life throws us a curveball, or a life altering challenge that actually helps shape us. So, do you have any specific
Yes,
moments or experiences that kind of have changed your perspective or changed the way that you thought life was going to go?
absolutely. So many. So when I first started coaching 10 years ago, I went back to get certified when I started the coaching side of the business. And at that point, I had been very successful, financially and in my business. My business was one of the top businesses in the area. I was the room mom, had a, home, had the cars, had had everything. I achieved success.
Mhm.
However, I knew that within myself, like, something was missing. Like, I didn't feel right. I felt empty.
Mhm.
And I just said, "Well, maybe this is just normal. This is just I have everything. Maybe this is just how life is. You just feel like this emptiness." However, when I was in a coaching class and I had a private session with one of my instructors, he taught me that the most empowered person in the room is the person that takes nothing personal. Because I went to him with a challenge and he said, "Well, you're taking this personal, you're internalizing it, you're making it about yourself." And I stepped back in that moment and I said, "Oh my goodness, my entire life I've taken things personal. I've internalized it. I've made it, be about me. I've had hurt feelings." So in that moment, I realized, okay, it's not about me. I need to step back and also take accountability for my life because, yes, I was successful from the outside, but I wasn't successful on the inside because I was giving my power away to everything outside of me
Mhm.
because I was taking things personal. I was hurt by
You
the
were
judgment that was thrown my
Mhm.
way.
Sounds like you were almost like, um, putting a lot of emotional significance on, certain things that have happened to you rather than seeing it as what it is and separate from the emotion.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I was able to recognize that, it was a game changer for me. And then
Mhm.
that's when I started unraveling, like, well, what are the stories that I'm telling myself? And the stories that I was telling myself got me to the place of success, external
Mhm.
success, professional
Mhm.
success. However, the
Yeah.
stories I was telling myself were not going to get me to the personal and interpersonal success with myself. So I had to unlearn what got me here, step into a new empowering story to get from there to here, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Tell us about one of those moments, those dark roads that you had to go on. What did that look like? What was one of the hardest life-altering challenges that you went through?
Mhm. That's a great question. Well, when was I believe I was 31 years old, and my mom was, oh, I wasn't actually 31 yet, maybe 30. My mom was 50, and she was on her deathbed. She was
Mm,
dying. I was 9 months pregnant with my youngest son, and my body was just hurting all over because I had been, there helping take care of her. I was running a business. I still had, a young son at home, my husband, and I just felt alone, overwhelmed. And then she passed away.
mm,
And I don't think I've ever felt so alone and so depressed. I went into a deep depression. I delivered my son 40 days after my mother passed away, and then I went into a deep depression.
mm,
And I'd go to people, in my life and say, "I'm not feeling right. Something's not right." And they said, "Don't worry, this is normal. Just you just had a baby, your mother died, just keep moving forward." Yet I would find myself just in the car crying. I didn't know how to pull myself together. The pain was so unbearable. I found myself in the doctor's office several times crying. I couldn't find the relief that I needed.
mhm,
And little by little, I went back to, the success tools I had learned early on. And so I started focusing on myself. Exercise became my medicine.
mm,
And then I started listening, although I had always been, into success and motivation, I really made it a commitment to immerse myself into positivity and be really discerning on what I was allowing in my space and what was I watching, what was I listening to. I made sure I exercised every day. And there was point where the doctor did put me on medication, and that did help me while I was doing, using the tools on my own, and eventually I was able to pull myself out and become healthy. But when you're in that dark place, like, it's painful. It's
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically painful. Like, that pain resonates through your entire being. And it's real. The struggle is real.
Yeah.
And be compassionate with yourself. I had to be compassionate with myself. And I did it alone, and I wouldn't recommend that. If you are feeling some type of way, find someone that you can trust and reach out to them, because I really believe that isolation magnifies our darkness.
Oh, yeah.
And when we're in
100%.
community and in fellowship, you don't feel as alone. So I would definitely do that differently.
Mhm.
If I could talk to my younger self, I would say definitely reach out. Well, there's shame. There was shame around it too.
Mhm. Yeah, talk to us about that because I think, many of us, kind of hide behind the walls of our home or our screens, right? And because we are feeling shame, right? Where shame actually doesn't belong in the first place most of the time.
Mhm, mhm. So the shame for me was, if you reached out and needed support and help, that was a sign of weakness.
Mm,
That's what I was conditioned to believe.
mm,
When, as we know, that reaching out for support is really a sign of strength, where
yeah.
our vulnerability builds our strength and
Mhm.
sharpens our resilience. And it's
Yeah.
courageous to reach out for support.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines that I read on your website actually was work on being a human being, not a human doing.
That's
And
right.
I thought that was like really profound and I want to talk about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's dig into that one.
Well, I was the oldest of 5,
Mhm.
and, as beings, as children, like, we want attention. We want to be
Mhm.
seen. We want to be heard.
Yeah.
All of us. And I learned early on, if I did for you, if I was of service, then I would be seen, or at least I'd
Yeah.
get an acknowledgement. And
Yeah.
so I was conditioned to have this belief, if I'm doing and pleasing, that's a people pleaser also in me.
Yeah.
If I'm doing and pleasing, then I'm going to get that reinforcement. I'm going to be seen and I'm going to be heard. However, that creates a very toxic pattern where I tied my worth to what I was doing,
Mhm.
how much I was doing. And the people pleasing comes in. I didn't know how to say no, because I was afraid if I said no and set a boundary, then that person wouldn't think I was a good person, because my worth
Mhm.
was tied to the doing. So I would do, and then I would get the, affirmation of, "Oh, thank you. You're such a good person." That validated me,
I
which
totally relate to that. Yeah,
you're
when I
chasing the
was
dragon.
younger.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
And I think
then I
there
learned
is
when
actually a lot of women that can relate to that.
Mhm.
And men too, but I think
Sure.
like a lot of women especially, a lot of girls, I think still, we see is still a lot of that and I absolutely can relate to that. I don't know what your family life was like growing up, but as someone who, you know, I was a secret from my dad's family. And so I thought that love was earned, so
Mhm.
this you
Me too.
do things to be the good girl so that you can keep the relationship well. And that was what that meant. So I can absolutely relate to that. What has helped you move forward with that?
Well, it's been a long journey for sure. And what helped me was recognizing that I am worthy no matter what,
Mhm.
period, the
Mhm.
end.
Mhm.
If I was created and a power greater than me brought me onto this planet, into this body, then I'm worthy, period.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
did a lot of, affirmations. I know that affirmations may not work for everyone. However, I mean, I have journals that I pull out with just pages and pages of affirmation. And I studied a lot because I knew that how I felt in my body wasn't right because I always felt, stressed. There was always some contention.
Mhm.
So I just was on a well, I've been on a really quest of self-development since I was 15 years old. But you don't know what you don't know until you know it. It wasn't until, my 30s and 40s that I recognized, like, I'm worthy no matter what. I don't need to do these
Yeah.
things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Like, I can set boundaries and I'm still a good person. I can say no and I'm still a good person. And if they don't like it and they talk bad about me, that's not about me. So
Mhm.
I really had to work hard to overcome that because I was conditioned in an environment where we worried about what everyone's thought and said.
Yep. Yeah. I totally understand. Well, I feel like there is a lot of people that do struggle with kind of self-doubt. Can be quiet, can be loud. And then there's also negative patterns
Um,
that people fall into or they develop when they're a child, that can be subconscious or
mhm,
conscious, right? And are negative patterns. And how do we I want to talk about how do we identify those doubts or those negative patterns, or those, self-limiting narratives that we find ourselves in. How do
mhm,
we um how do we recognize those and then how do we do something about them?
mhm. That's a great question. 95% of the way we live our lives is unconscious and is based on those unconscious stories we tell ourselves. So we don't even know. And so
Mhm.
one of the first steps I took to start uncovering my belief system, the stories I was telling myself, was I just got a journal and I sat alone, by myself. And, there was the 5 pillars of life. I thought, okay, when it comes to relationships, what do I believe to be true about relationships? So I
Mhm.
started writing out the stories I believe to be true. Well, what do I believe about myself? S- So I would start, because there's so many. That's where I started. And when you start writing out the stories, you have to ask yourself, now, is that true? And so I didn't realize, like, I had created my life to because I was doing everything. I wouldn't delegate, like, I was overwhelmed, but I had a story that I can't trust anyone. I have to do everything on my own.
Mhm.
So, is that true? I'm like, "Okay, it's not true. So what's a better story that I can tell myself?" So I had to start reframing because when you really look at your stories, they're self-sabotaging as well.
Mhm.
So those stories got me to my success 'cause that from the y so those stories get us to where we wanna go. Then around in our 30 when we're 35, 40, they don't benefit us anymore. They
Yep.
become they're sabotaging us.
It's so
And so
true.
we have to learn. It's the great unlearn.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I really feel like that's a lot of, life without secrets. Like, what are those secrets that we are keeping from ourselves? And oftentimes,
Yes.
those are those things that are those subconscious things that we are telling ourselves, right? Like the work that we're not doing, the realities we're not actually holding on to and doing something about it. And so, what does living a life without secrets mean to you? And how do we embody that in our relationships and our work?
So for me, living a life without secrets means being true and honest
Mhm.
with myself.
Mhm.
And something, I struggled with was receiving.
Mhm.
And so now if I'm honest with myself, I have a belief, had a belief, and there's something I still have to work on that if I receive from someone, that means they can control me, that I owe them. So, Grace, it's not that, you know, you're not good enough to receive. You have this story, so, like, own it. Get it out. Like, it's not a
Mhm.
secret anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
'Cause, like,
And
"Oh,
what are
well, I don't
those
have to work so hard to earn
Mhm.
everything to deserve it." Well, you created that,
Mhm. Yeah.
so I take ownership
Yeah,
and
that's great.
accountability.
Yeah. What are some strategies that you use to, practice being more of a human being rather than just a doing? What are some things that like cuz I think oftentimes like there's a lot of rushed energy in the world, we can have a to-do list a mile long. There's always things that are, buying for our attention on every corner that we turn, every, time we open our phones. What are some strategies that you have implemented into your life to focus more on just being a human being rather than just a human doing?
I make sure I'm constantly conscious about where my nervous system is. I make an
Mhm.
effort to move from the sympathetic nervous response into the parasympathetic, meaning from fight or flight down to, rest
Yeah.
and restore.
Mhm.
I know when I'm here, I'm not going to be effective. The solutions aren't going to come. And so some ways that I do that is first thing in the morning, I make sure that I take time to either meditate or pray or a combination of the two.
Mhm.
And I also watch my breath, which I don't breathe much. I'm like, "Wait, Grace, breathe." Like, "You're not breathing." So,
Mhm.
a combination of the meditation or the prayer first thing in the morning, I make sure to watch my breath. And one thing that I think we take for granted is getting out into nature. So I make sure like I'm able to slow myself down because I still hustle because I like to hustle and I
Mhm.
like to grind. However,
Yeah.
now I incorporate kind of harmony into that hustle and grind, which means every day finding moments of peace and rest and restoration because that's how you become more productive.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Contrary to
ask you because a lot of people will see that as like a weakness, right? When they're high achievers, they're on all the time. Like, what do you mean I need to slow down? Like, I need to get XYZ done. Like, you haven't seen my to-do list. You don't know what's on my to-do list, right? Like, I'm carrying all this stuff, but I'm also, good at all these things over here. And so one might see that as a weakness.
I
How do
get
we
it.
begin to reset that pattern of changing our perspective or gaining new insight on what is actually going on inside of us internally? Like you talk
Yeah.
about, the nervous system, which I love to talk about that. It is so true. Well, what is really going on inside of us and why do these high achievers, I've been there too. Why do I feel like we need to be on all the time? And why do we feel like that's weakness and what can we do about it?
Well, I believe we were conditioned that way to be, uber productive.
Mhm.
Yet science shows that our productivity declines when we don't take those times to break and rest. So, what I would share with the high achiever, like that was me,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
you're not being efficient or effective, and one, you're tying your worth to your achievement and how much you do, which puts you in a place of resistance, which you're, blocking yourself from receiving opportunities and possibilities because we can create from a place of ease and grace. Now, do we need to take, effort? Of course we do.
Mhm.
But it's like a river. Like, how are you going to flow down the river with ease if it's just filled with gunk? Like, it's not. It's going to be much harder. And kind of also when our body's feeling that stress and heavier, are you really going to be productive and move through, you know, the world with ease to attract those opportunities and possibilities if you're constantly stressed?
Yeah. The answer is no.
No, which I didn't know that until I started learning. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, wait a second. You mean rest? If I rest, I'll be more efficient and effective?" And I've practiced. I've done experiments. Like, one year, I focused 80% on play and fun, 20% on work. And the next year I did, and based on my experiment, the rest and play and fun, it helps make you even more successful, believe it or not.
Yeah. What are some simple ways we can add more joy into our daily lives or routines? What have you found?
Yeah, well, I mean, that depends on the person. Like, I
Mm,
love to go work out, and I love to dance, and I love to connect with my friends. Someone else might love to, watch a good movie. For me, it's walking the dog, being outside in nature, like I said, dancing, connecting with my friends, people I
mhm.
love, doing these
Yeah.
podcasts, doing
Yeah.
the work I do.
Yeah. I think too, it's also important, like nobody's life is going to look like all joy. It's not going to look
No.
like all positivity. It's not going to, you're not going to get to uh, you're not going to overcome a challenge or move through a challenge and then suddenly not have a new one. Like that's just how life works, right? Like there's always going to be curveballs and
Yeah,
challenges. And I think, something else that I read, that you had said was that dark roads serve a purpose.
they do.
Yeah, and so
They do.
how have dark roads served a purpose for you, and how can we begin to shift our perspective there too?
Mhm. So this year we've had some curveballs thrown at us, in my family and in my business. Had I not been through the dark roads in the past and cultivated resilience and saw the silver lining in those dark moments, the challenges that we faced this year would have totally knocked me off.
Mm,
However, I'm not saying I wasn't affected, but I was prepared. Like, when these things happen, like we had a fire in one of our businesses. That's not something
you're
that we like.
wow.
Everything was going great, and then a fire affected us. So we said, "Okay, this happened. This is a total, X into our plan, and everything will work out. So let's do what we need to do." So we went into, identifying, a solution, being open to solution instead of the why us, why me, this is terrible. It is terrible. Life happens. So had I not cultivated the resilience from the dark times I went through before, I wouldn't be have we wouldn't have been able to thrive through this year despite the challenges that we faced.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you gain confidence to understand, okay, yes, this is happening. It's happening for us. It's not happening to us. And it's a mindset. It's a perspective. Because I could lay on the floor and cry like a victim and ask why us.
Yeah. Well,
Not
and
being
you've
a
been there
victim.
before, right? You've been in that dark time, right? Where you struggled to get up in the morning. You struggled to go through your daily life. You had a moment like that in your past.
Many
And I think
moments
the
like
fact
that.
that you many moments, yeah. And and the fact that you were able to get up, you proved to yourself, and that's what you mean by you've built the confidence in yourself. Like you can take what you've learned from the dark road that you've been on and apply it to these other areas of your life. And not only that, but you have built these tools to find joy in your daily life, to exercise, to replenish yourself, to go for a walk in nature, to renew your soul. Like you have built these tools by that time in your life that those dark roads kind of led you to find.
Absolutely. Is there so many dark times.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
also you also have to, you have to surrender. You have to surrender to a power greater than you, whatever that may be to you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what's really helped me on this journey is I can't be in control. I can only control myself. And I let go and I surrender to a power that is greater than me.
Mhm.
And as I look back, like, that power greater than me has never let me down. Yes, I've been through so many dark times, yet I always come out of it, and when I look back, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, okay, that's why that happened for me." And
Yeah.
although, I've faced depression and there was days that I couldn't get up, once I cultivated, you know, the mindset that I have and live the lifestyle that I do, it's rare that I feel those days that I don't wanna get up. It's very rare,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm
Mhm.
blessed for that. I really am. To live life
Yeah.
like that. Like, this has been incredible, and that's why I'm so passionate about sharing what I learned.
Yeah. So what do you do today? Talk about what is going on in life today and what you're doing.
So what I do today, so I am a speaker and I'm a success coach. And I work with high performance, high achieving individuals who have really cultivated incredible professional success and are feeling a little bit lost in their personal life. So I work with them to help them recognize that they can achieve both professional and personal success to, feel that freedom and that excitement to get up every day and ready to slay the day instead of getting up and just feeling like they need to drag through the day. So we can create a life that we don't want a vacation from.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. I'm into that. Well, you're a mentor, a coach, a business leader. What is a
Yes.
message or a piece of wisdom that you want listeners to really take away from your story, and what you do?
Mhm. I think there is a myth that we can't have it all, and we can have it all. It's just we need to, again, get honest with ourselves, put our secrets on the table with ourselves, be honest with the stories we're telling ourselves, also be honest about our resentments
Mhm.
because our resentments hold us back. And dream big. There's nothing that you can't be, do, or have regardless of your circumstances. You can do it. You can. I've seen some incredible miracles. So whatever you're going through, wherever you wanna go, you can get there.
Yeah. Something else I wanna bring up, that has been on my mind a lot lately is, people talk about, like, following your purpose and your passion, which, I totally agree. However, I think like as we are gaining experience through life, as we're gaining those tools, as we're learning our tools in those dark roads, right, that do serve a purpose, or those times where maybe like it's not our passion to be in the job that we're in now, but there's a purpose for us there.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times people get so focused on like, oh, well, I don't really like my job. So I'm not really passionate about it. And so then they leave too quickly. And this is my opinion, and I want
Mhm.
love to talk about this with you. They leave and then find themselves kind of lost when they leave and trying to go this other direction without having learned the tools that were meant for them over here. And that's just my take a lot on what I see, especially in this industry. And I kind of want what do you think about that? What is your thoughts?
Yeah. In this industry, meaning our which industry?
Well, in entrepreneurship, in the
Yes.
world, I mean,
In roles.
I think a lot of young people, especially, are feeling lost because they are being told to like follow their passion. Number one, they're not even sure what that is yet.
Right.
And then number 2, like, well, if following your passion doesn't make you, any money and like then, that does that make sense? Or is your passion to like be around the people that you love? And how do you get to that? And maybe that means working hard over here and there's a purpose for you over here and you're going to
For
learn all
sure.
these lessons and tools.
I love this. Well, if we're in a situation that isn't working for us, then we leave the situation and go to another situation. Most likely, that situation is going to mimic the last situation we left
Mhm.
until we look within ourselves and say, okay, what was my part in the situation? Now we have to take accountability for our part and do the work. It's like, have you ever been, I can speak for myself. I was in a relationship that wasn't working. It was abusive. So I left that relationship. I went to the next relationship. That relationship wasn't working and it was abusive. Okay, what was the common denominator? It was me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I had to make, some changes. Now, yes, we all have a purpose and we want to follow our passion. And you have to be, like you said, honest with yourself as well. Like,
Mhm.
what work are you doing to expand and grow? Because this situation that's not working for you, that's your teacher. If you don't
Yeah.
learn the lesson, it's gonna show up again.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I wanted your thoughts because it's something that I'm feeling more and more passionate about that topic. And because I see people kind of like, oh, I want to be this, and like they haven't really built the the background or stayed long enough in where they're at to find the lesson there,
Mhm.
that's meant to take them to the next thing
That's right.
when you're
I
ready.
agree with
Yeah.
you. I agree
Yeah.
with you. And
Yeah.
it takes time. I
Mhm.
think that social media has created a perception in the younger generation that
Mhm.
they can become millionaires, successful overnight. Now,
Yep.
is that possible? You know, I think anything is possible, but does that happen, you know, is does that happen often? Probably not. I think that's the exception.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think too is like, you know, could you be passionate about something and work hard where you're at the moment? And maybe
Absolutely.
that passion then becomes, something you work in the future. Like just I think, my message would just be like work hard and be open,
Yes,
but know that like maybe where you are is where you're meant to be for right now. And maybe, learn there. And I think that the next platform is going to come for you, and
agree.
as you work hard, you know, learning the skills and the knowledge to get there.
I agree. You know what
Yeah.
metaphor just came up in my mind? Let me know how this resonates with
Yeah.
you. Like, okay, you want to get a fit body. So you go to the gym and then you get on, one machine for 1 minute, then another machine for 1 minute, then you leave. Right?
Mhm.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna come back tomorrow and I'm gonna get on that machine for, 1 set, then that machine for 1 set, then you leave. Like, how are you going to create a fit body if you're not really committed to anything really?
Mhm. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's like the best. I know what you're saying. I think like getting to the gym and actually doing something is step number one, though, right? Like we can grow in that at least,
True.
I mean, if that's all we do for the rest of our life, that means that we stayed in the same. We didn't
Mm,
complete the mission here.
exactly.
Um, but
There
like
isn't a
if
consistency
that's
or
the first step, right,
Mhm.
then that's the first step, but, like, what's next? Like, what can we do after that? How does that serve us? Maybe it does serve us, like, how does it make us feel? And if it makes us feel good in that 1 or 2 minutes that we're there, how can we make time for more of it? How
Mm,
can we
that's a
how
good
can we
perspective.
grow? But yeah, I hear what you're saying too. It's like we can't expect to grow or get better at something that we're not that maybe we're half in, half out all the
Right,
time. Mhm.
if we're not committed. Now commitment, well, maybe the gym wasn't a good example, but let's say, a lot of people are working a 9 to 5 and they wanna grow a side hustle.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, you're committed to, an hour a week working on your side hustle. Well, imagine what you can do in 12 months.
Mhm. Mhm. Totally. Yeah. Well, and a good example of this too would be and I'm just for some reason have the younger generation on my mind today, but
I love that.
when we go to college, for instance, like for me, when I went to college, I had a like a goal, and I wasn't going to change my mind in the process because I wanted to finish what I started.
Mhm.
So I think, when we pick something, pick it and run with it.
Mhm.
Like, and stop being so distracted about all these other
Gosh.
things
Well,
because
you just
there's a reason. And then it doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life.
that's
Doesn't
true.
mean you have to stay there. It
No.
just means you committed to something, you finished it, and you're proving to yourself that when the next thing comes, you can do the same thing.
Well, I love that, and you just hit a ding, ding, ding word, distractions. I mean,
Mhm,
we have
mhm.
more distractions these days than ever in the history of
Oh,
our
for
like,
sure,
in my lifetime,
for sure.
and so I think that's another reason why it's so hard for the younger generation to stay committed to, one task, career, job, because there's so many
Mhm,
distractions. And I think
mhm,
that's a whole other, subject, because then you have the dopamine addiction, then you have the
mhm.
comparison, then you have the self-sabotage. So they're constantly looking for something outside of themselves, which all of us, it's not just the younger generation,
No,
where we have to
mhm.
turn it back to this.
Yep, 100%.
I mean, I struggle. There's so many distractions, and
Oh,
I
me
work
too.
really hard every day, like, put the phone on do not disturb, don't answer calls. I feel with the younger generation because they are dealing with so many distractions and issues and challenges that my generation never had to deal with.
Mhm, mhm. I
And
know.
on
I
top of
feel for
that,
them
I
too.
really don't wanna bring this into the subject, but they also the pandemic didn't help either. So they're dealing
Mhm.
with so many different moving pieces, and that's why I think it's so important for us to be the role models and mentors to that generation.
Yeah,
They dealt with a lot,
100%. Yeah.
and they're
They're
brilliant,
yeah, brilliant. Yeah. They have so many things that they know at their fingertips that I'd never did. So,
right? They're
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, it's amazing. Well, this has just been super fun. I'm glad you were willing to just go wherever we went today, and
Thank
I
you, I
just
enjoyed it.
appreciate you.
Oh, I know, I
How can people connect with you from here?
Yes. So you can find me at www.daretoachieve.com, or you can find me at Grace Redman, Redman. Just Google me, and I'm on social media. You can Real Talk with Grace Redman. Definitely would love to connect with you. Join our email list. If you have any questions, just reach out. I'm always happy, to be supportive.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on here again, and I'm excited to connect with you from here. And everybody, just I hope you've taken as much away as I have from Grace's story and all her powerful lessons she shared.
Mhm.
Remember, whether you're facing challenges or simply wanting to grow, the tools and mindset shifts we discussed today can help you unlock your potential and really live a life of purpose and resilience. So, thank you
Absolutely.
everyone for tuning in on Life Without Secrets. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need a little inspiration today. Until next time, keep living authentically and embracing your journey. Hey there, it's Jillian from Life Without Secrets. Ever feel like you and your partner aren't quite on the same page? Well, you're not alone, and that's exactly why I created our latest issue of Truthful magazine. It's packed with insights and stories about bridging that gap and finding a deeper connection. We're diving into real conversations about needs, feelings, and how honest dialogue can rekindle that closeness that you've been missing. Why not explore this together? Go grab your free copy right now at lifewithoutsecrets.com and turn those pages into shared moments. Can't wait for you to dive in and share your thoughts with me.